Hello, I'm Mark, and this is GM Prep for Blades in the Dark. The first thing I should probably state is that there's going to be spoilers, so if you haven't watched the other episodes, which are conveniently located over here, probably, assuming YouTube works correctly, then you should probably have watched those first before you come watch this, because it's not going to make any sense, and you're going to spoil everything that's going to happen going forward. However, now that we've gotten rid of all those people, we can talk about how terrible that last session was. Oh my god. I that was real bad. And I don't even necessarily mean like the consequences of what happened in the game. I mean like it was just not run well. Like that GM sucked. What was his deal? um he used the word book things to describe, I don't even know. Um, my only excuse is that I, started a new job and hadn't thought about the game a whole lot, and so I just wasn't in, I don't know, a running mindset. I was tired. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that it wasn't good. The GM should be punished severely for his lack of effort. Um, But that wasn't the only terrible thing that happened. The other, of course, terrible thing that happened was that the PCs broke into Elstera Avrothi's house and then totally sucked. they they got attacked by a couple red sashes because Elstera was planning for them to be there. And they all got knocked unconscious and they all got stressed out and they all took trauma and just the whole thing went south real fast. Um, so that was probably another GM screw up. I didn't think three red sashes would be that big a deal. I don't know. Maybe that was wrong thinking of me. Well, I mean, it was wrong thinking of me, apparently, because good lord. Um, yeah, I mean, my thought going into that session was that, um, and I talked about this a little bit, on the previous GM prep, was that, the big consequence that was going to arise from breaking into Elstera's house was that Elstera was planning for people to break into her house. She'd basically told all the various people in town that she was testing, I guess. There's a couple different groups actually that she is messing around with, and I can probably show you that. Probably. See? Right there. Um, so we can see that she is indirectly connected to the Path of Echoes through Lord Pendrin. So she was obviously investigating him. And then also Circle of the Flame members, of which one of them I believe is Lady Pendrin. Yeah, it's Lady Pendrin. So, she was just checking in on her enemies, essentially. She told them all different artifacts that she had and assumed that someone would probably try to break into her house. And when she found out which one, which artifact they were after, ta-da, now she knows who's actually after her. Such a clever plot. That's all that I really intended for that, was just, oh yeah, she was prepared for you. Um, and it turned out weird because, my plan going into it was to just sort of say, as consequences arose from their roles, whatever their roles happen to be, was, hey, there's more guard presence here than there should be. Things are, slightly off. It's like the house is prepared for you in some way. Um, except that all my PCs just rolled really well at the beginning. They just kept getting sixes, so there were no consequences until they got, deeper into the room, into the house, and, fell into her cunning plan. Still, I didn't think it was a big deal to throw some guys at them, some red sashes. That all made sense, from the fiction. And then all the PCs just started rolling really badly. They I think was it 3 different sway rolls that they tried to convince Elstera not to have them killed, and they all rolled 3 or worse on them. And that wasn't the only rolls that went poorly. I mean, there were some of the actual, combat-y rolls that didn't go well for people as well. Yeah, it all just kind of fell apart. So, I guess this would be a good example of how you get your game back on the rails, or it could be a bad example, depending on how this goes. So it was never, I mean, like I told them at the end of the session, she wasn't actually going to kill you. She actually doesn't care about the PCs. She really just cares about the people that she was baiting. And so it really, I mean, honestly, that wasn't me backtracking or trying to keep the group alive. She really just didn't care. So it seems to me I've got 3 choices of what to do with them. And I haven't quite decided which one to go with. So toss into the comments if you've got any cool ideas, or, you can be on Twitch live with me right now and we could discuss it together. We could do that. So I got 3 thoughts about what Elstera is going to do with the PCs. First off, she could throw their bodies at Lord Pendrin and just say, "Hey, look, I caught you. Here's your dumb people. Why do you suck?" Could do that. And in fact, I am going to do something while I'm thinking about it right now. So this is actually the second time that the PCs have screwed up Pandaren. The first time, was they didn't really know. Because they were, what were they? They were investigating something that they weren't even sure that Pendrin was involved in, or they didn't know that Pendrin was involved in. And actually, Pendrin doesn't even know that they are involved in it yet. But that was something that happened. Definitely, they screwed up that assassination. Second time, they, fell into Elstera's plot, and that was directly done by Pandaren. So Pandaren is going to not like them. That's right. They've got a -1. Regardless of what happens in this next session, they're going to have a -1 with the Path of Echoes. Now you might be saying, "Hey, I didn't know the Path of Echoes were involved." Well, they kind of are, Lord Pendrin. He's sort of my, go-to NPC for them. That's what he sort of represents, the face of the Path of Echoes, whereas Elstera is the face of the Church of the Flame. Not the Church of the Flame. God, the Circle of the Flame. Yeah, so -1, Path of Echoes. But back to my original point, which was what Elstera is going to do with them. She could throw them to Pandaren. That's fine. I mean, that's basically just going to turn into a, Pandaren gets angry at them. It's the second time they foiled his plans. They probably won't get any more jobs from him. That's my option there. The second one is one of Elstera's background plots, which I was, thinking about eventually introducing. Maybe not, maybe so. But actually, she could turn them over to the church. Now, why would she turn them over to the church? Well, there's a sort of a good reason, sort of a not. We still got Preceptor Dunville and whatever his plot was going on, and we know that it involves something about Ascension, because I think I said that on the last GM Prep episode, or maybe the one before that. I don't know. It's got something to do with Ascension, and so I was thinking that I could actually introduce that plot by having them captured by the Church of Ecstasy. Elstera basically, tries to get another favor and arranges for those bodies to turn up there. I like that one just because it feels to me how I've been playing Elstera. I have her so my thought was, she doesn't really care about the PCs necessarily. It's more about, who she's manipulating in the wider picture, the higher tiers. She doesn't give a fuck about tier 1 and 2s. They're beneath her. So the way I've been sort of playing her is she is just like a favor monger. She is just accumulating favors across the city for her own nefarious plans. And that was what the original mission was, really, was just her helping someone in order to get a favor in return. And so I could definitely see her, helping someone else. So that's an option. And, it turns the PCs into a bargaining chip for her, at least a little bit, like, hey, I got you these people. That's what you wanted, right? Some people. Yeah, I could go that way. And that would actually play into the second job that the PCs were going to go on, because they were going to go, if you recall, and we didn't ever get to this because they decided to fail, was they were going to go deal with Elder Cardera and the members of his parish that he wants to not join the church and become hollows. He wants to go against what the church did or does. So that would, tie that little fork together a little bit better, which could be a good thing, just to keep, the situation and the events manageable. Just, from a forward momentum, this is the plot way, although I don't really have a plot necessarily in mind for that. I just know where it's going, but we're playing to find out. And I guess what we played to find out is that PCs cannot take on 3 red sashes. My third option, speaking of red sashes, Elstera could just give the PCs to the red sashes. The red sashes don't like them. The red sashes are at war. I've introduced my Lara, the leader of the red sashes, into that last little fight. So it could make sense that they could use the PCs in their war against the Lampblacks. That makes it a little more street level, which wouldn't be a bad option. I don't have any PCs that are super occulty, and going towards the church could be a little bit too much occulty stuff. I don't know for them right now. So I could just, have the red sashes get the PCs and do something with them. What exactly the red sashes would do with them, I'm not quite sure. So I have to think about that. Yeah. So I'm kind of leaning towards number 2 just because number 2. I've got it leaning towards Elstera turning them over to the church just because I've got that one a little more fleshed out at this moment in my head. But I could easily be convinced to go with the red sashes or even Penderin. Yeah. So there's not a whole lot to prep for this particular thing. Just because I thought that would go a little faster. And of course we do have downtime after the operation. And so I didn't know, exactly timing wise. I thought we would probably be starting the next one. We'd probably maybe lay the groundwork, maybe get an entanglement roll to start that second operation with Elder Cardera. That obviously didn't happen. The combat went really long, actually. I was actually a little surprised at how that went. Again, I'm just going to blame that on bad GMing because I'm a terrible GM, apparently. Um, so I still got that plot, just sitting there, that next operation. Um, it's up to them, if they still want to do that. This may have just complicated their lives too much. They're all pretty fucked up. They're all pretty injured now. They're going to have to take some downtime and maybe spend all their downtime just healing, honestly. But then that would make it faster, so we might get to that next operation, that next score, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to play it by ear because I just don't know. And so there's not a whole lot to prep. The one thing that I could probably prep would be an entanglement. Entanglement? Is that the right word? Yeah. I get engagement and entanglement confused, but I've already told you about my bad GMing, so you should know that. Yeah, so there is an entanglement after the score. And weirdly, they actually succeeded at this score because they did find out that Elstera does not have the Heart of Kotar. And so I got to think about the heat and the like the payout, the payment for this last one. But honestly, I think they succeeded, so they should get the money. Get the money, get the heat from it, and then of course the entanglement that comes from that. So that's what I've got to prep. Really, the only thing. My only issue with that is again, I don't want to make it too complex at this point. I see like 3 or 4 plots just sort of spidering out, and them not having a great focus going forward. And that's, a thing that can happen in these sort of games where you don't have a plot in mind necessarily. You're just aiming in the same direction the PCs are, I guess. But I want to make sure that I am aiming at something just to keep it a little tighter. So I might skip the entanglement. And in fact, there was an entanglement last time that was like from 3 sessions ago. So I'm like backed up on entanglements in this weird, odd thing. And I did actually prep an entanglement that I just never brought in. So if need be, there's the entanglement from this score. So actually, in a weird, well, it's not even weird. In a way, there isn't any GM prep. So what I wanted to spend the rest of our time together talking about was what went wrong. Because everything went wrong. Everything went wrong. And I'm not even sure I have any great insights into how or why. I mean, I will say that I was tired, not in the right mindset, maybe. Maybe shouldn't have run. I'm not sure. I do feel better about the new job as far as like it's not taking up my brain space after work anymore. The first couple weeks it was, a lot of information to take in and stuff. So I am feeling, more confident that way, that my brain isn't taken up with work versus role playing. So I feel like that, was probably the first initial issue, was that I just wasn't in the right headspace for this. Whoops. I think I'm okay now, but if it happens again, we'll know. And then I definitely implemented I remembered the tier rules, like the red sashes are tier 2, the PCs are tier 0. Their fine weapons are not giving them a great effect. They are giving them a standard effect. So there was that, it maybe got a little tougher, and I hadn't adjusted into my head. I probably shouldn't have gone with 3 red sashes. I probably should have just gone with maybe like 2 plus my Lara. I don't know. But then, so I was bad at description and coming up with things. It's a good thing I had thought about it as much as I had, honestly, because there was a couple points in there where if I hadn't have thought about it beforehand, I would have been in trouble. Just because my brain wasn't working. Um, the other big problem I had was that I could not think of good devil's bargains. Just couldn't think of any. All the ones that I kept thinking of were like would have been consequences of what they were doing already. So, and that doesn't work as devil's bargains. You know, you want to throw in something else. And the devil's bargains I kept thinking of was like, oh well, one of her enemies will find out, or but then that's sort of where my brain was going. But then in the actual session, I was like, well, how would her enemies actually find it? Like that? It's just not. It didn't ever connect, and maybe I just got stuck on that path of trying to think of a devil's bargain that aligned with that, and I should have just come up with like different. I don't know. Devil's bargains were tough for me. And that screws the PCs a little bit because they've got to spend if they want extra dice, and they definitely wanted extra dice in that fight. Then they got to spend stress as opposed to taking the devil's bargain. So I gotta work on that. The devil's bargains. There were a couple times where the session just ground to a halt where I tried to think of one. That wasn't good. And the last part I think that I could talk about why things went so terribly wrong was I also don't think my players were in the right headspace. I kept mentioning, hey, don't forget flashbacks, and hey, don't forget, helping, and they just didn't ever seem to gel with that. I was expecting someone to come up with some super awesome flashback, like, hey, look, I brought a smoke bomb. Poof, we disappear like ninja. I mean, something, The doorbell rings and the Girl Scouts are outside because I told them to come, and Elster has to go answer the door, and we all have to be very quiet. I mean, turn it into a silly rom-com situation. Whatever. Something. Flashback, people. I honestly was not expecting it to turn into a big direct fight. I really did throw those guards in as a threatening thing of shit, this is blown. Let's get out. Now, I did make it a little difficult, just from the room setup and everything, but that was more just, me trying to challenge them more than anything, and they were not up to the challenge. They were not up to the challenge. I mean, I don't want to blame them, but it didn't seem to go real well. I don't know. I expected them to be a little more actiony hero, and I couldn't. That's the thing about flashbacks. It's really tough to say, hey guys, don't forget about flashbacks. For instance, you could do this. Because then if they go and end up going with that, well, then they feel a little cheated, I think, because they didn't come up with it. Even if it's a good idea and it's the only thing they can think of to get out of the situation, they're still like, well, I mean, in a weird way, is that railroading? Is that railroading suggesting flashbacks? I don't know. I don't think it is, but it's definitely on the same track. You see what I did there? Railroading track. Oh my god, I'm hilarious. So yeah, I think we just need to maybe do a little rules review before we start of just, hey, don't forget your flashbacks. Don't forget, your equipment. Although I think they've got the equipment thing down, like the load, and then picking the different items as they go. They've actually been fairly decent about that, from the beginning. I think they've got that part down. It's the flashback mechanic that is not triggering. And in that situation, I think a flashback would have made a huge difference. Again, I wasn't trying to make Elstera like a huge, giant, physical threat. It was just more she's a power player in the city, and now you've fucked with her. Woe be unto you and the repercussions. Dun dun dun. But that's not what happened. What happened was a silly fight in a silly room that traumatized all the PCs. Um, so actually, you know what? Let's take a look at our PCs and see what traumas they picked. Just because I'm curious, and I think I don't remember. Timothy went with reckless. That'll be interesting. I actually like traumas. I think I've been sort of trying to push them towards traumas this whole time because I think that's where a lot more role playing happens, and it really lets you trigger this vice or trauma, XP trigger a lot more. Because if it's not downtime, it's hard to get your vice. But traumas can trigger all the time, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. And I never mentioned this, but every single session when I pull up Timothy's character sheet, this fucking spelling error, deception or in influence, and the little I turned the wrong thing. The little version number keeps ticking up like all the time. I think we started this game when it was at 2. And so like every time I log in, it's like at a different version number. And I keep thinking this will be the one where they fix that error, and they still haven't. And yes, I know you can just click on it and correct it. I don't know. I like it there to bother me. So Edlin went with unstable. That will be awesome. We've got a reckless and unstable people. And then it doesn't look like Bond has picked one yet. So we'll see. We'll see where they go with that. And I can get rid of this clock too. I also learned last session, my PCs talked to me after my players, they talked to me after the game and they're like, hey, we can't see the names on the clocks. And when there were only 2, we could keep track. But now that there was like 3, they were starting to get confused. Because apparently, and this is a Roll20 thing, show nameplate. Yeah, you got to go over here on this advanced tab and make sure that the players have permission to see the name. What? That I mean, I get why that is a ability. What I do not get is why it's on an entirely separate tab. Look at all this room right here. Like, couldn't you make this box bigger and just put that there? Why would I ever go? Okay. That's a Roll20 thing, I guess. So I don't know if there's anything else to talk about. We've still got these 2 clocks that are sitting there. The ink regs, man, the ink regs are about to go off. I gotta, something's gonna happen there. And the spirit wardens are still going. They're still, investigating a gang war pretty much. Nothing there I don't think has changed. Really? I could click up. I could, tick up the spirit warden one, but I honestly, it's not going to affect the PCs that much because it's in a district that they try not to go to necessarily. So I'm just going to leave that one alone for right now. If it becomes more relevant, we'll take it up. If not, oh well. So was that everything? I did show you my map, right? My fancy relationship map. I added some people. I moved some lines around. For instance, Chief Elker now works for them. Okay, it wasn't that exciting. But I'm keeping that updated. Yeah. So I'm not sure there's anything else except to ask you why you're watching this, because my players aren't very good at using flashbacks and I'm not very good at running this game. So why are you watching? What's wrong with you? Okay, seriously, if you do like the video, you can, click on the stuff that's down there and it'll do stuff. I don't know. You can like it. You can follow the channel. You can follow us on Twitter. You can come check us out on Twitch. We do this game live, 7 p.m. Mountain Time on Thursdays, alternate Thursdays, and on the other Thursday. I don't know how words work again. I do this live on Twitch, this GM prep. So come on over and say hello. That'd be cool. But you know, like the video, say stuff to us, leave some comments, whatever. It's cool. Thanks for watching. Bye.